Start the streaming. OBS did some updates, and it looks a little bit different today. Okay.
What is OBS?
That's the program that I use to record everything.
Oh, okay.
All right. Let me just make sure the stream's working since OBS did an update. Go delete, enter. Okay, the Hockey Nuts. Oh, we got 33 subscribers now.
On YouTube?
Yep.
Very good.
Thought we were at 29, so we're up to 33.
That's good.
Yep.
Oh.
All right, shows we're live now, so that's good.
Very good.
All right. Ready?
Ready to roll.
I'll pull up my show notes here. All right. Hello and welcome to episode 23 of season 2 of the Hockey Nuts podcast. My name's Wayne. I'm here with Steve. How's it going tonight, Steve?
It's going good, Wayne. Good to be with you. Despite all my heartache with the New York Rangers, I'm looking forward to this podcast, and I'm putting it out of my mind momentarily.
And we've got tonight as we record this, it is the last night of games before the All-Star break. So there's no games tomorrow night, no games Saturday, no games Sunday, no games Monday, unless you count all the All-Star festivities. But tonight there's 15 games, every team but one, and I don't even know which team is not playing tonight. Probably one of the ones that played last night. With the uneven amount of teams, they're not having one team will have to sit it out tonight, but every team in the NHL except for one team is playing tonight. So the games start at 7:00. So we're gonna roll through our podcast because I know the Bruins are playing, the Rangers are playing, and the Hurricanes are playing, which is our three teams that we follow most closely. So without further ado, let's get into it.
All
We've
right.
got a lot to talk about tonight. Of course, we got the All-Star festivities coming up this weekend. We've got a big 5-game suspension we want to talk about. That's got me a little hot under the collar. And then we got all kinds of stuff to talk about. Oh, we've got TSN's Bob McKenzie did a coaches poll. And I wanted to give you the details of that. So basically what he did is he contacted all 31 NHL coaches. All 31 participated, and we'll see what the coaches are thinking about some of the goings-on around the league this week. So let's get into it, starting with how our favorite teams did over the past week. And I know you're pretty frustrated with the New York Rangers, so let's get them out of the way and get on to some better news.
Okay. They went out west, Wayne, as you know, and riding a 2-game winning streak, played Colorado on Saturday in a matinee game. And it's not like these 3 games I'm talking about, we have been out of these games where there's no way we're going to win them. In each one of these games, we have played in the case of the Los Angeles Kings game, we were ahead 2-0 and lost. So it's not been the games where we've been beat out of the arena, but you kind of want to come away from this West Coast swing with a win, at least one win, and hopefully tonight we can do that. But the Colorado game, very frustrating. We lost 3-1. If I'm not mistaken, Colorado got an empty net goal at the end of that game, but it was very close. The game was not out of reach. And Colorado's a team that's playing extremely well right now. Nathan MacKinnon, as of the day that we played them, is second in the NHL in scoring. and he may have even overtaken Nikita Kucherov. I'm not sure about that, but he's right. He's way up there, and he's on a huge game scoring streak. He scored a goal against us. Looks very good on the ice. Obviously, the departure of Matt Duchene has opened up a lot of room for him to do what he does, and they're playing very well. I see them making the playoffs. I see Colorado being a team that makes the playoffs.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't doubt for 1 second that they will. The game against the Los Angeles Kings, I did not watch that game, but my wife did, and she said we were up 2-0. She said it was very frustrating. They got to the second period, and Los Angeles scored 3 power play goals on the Rangers, who, as of I don't know where they are now, but they were 5th on the penalty kill in the NHL early in the week. So not good to give up 3 power play goals in 1 period. And that wound up costing us. And then, of course, I watched the game with the Anaheim Ducks on Tuesday night. Once again, we were close in that. They did have an empty net goal at the end of the game. It was 4-3 in the third period. Mm-hmm. And scoring chances. It's not like we're not getting scoring chances. It's not like it's just road games, and we're losing. So, and we have a lot of road games coming up. So the Rangers have to figure out ways to capitalize on their opportunities when they're on the road.
Yeah, they're gonna have to learn to win on the road because they've played such a home heavy schedule the first part of the year. Now they're gonna have to even it up. They got a lot of road games in the second half.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help, and I never sing the blues on this, but it doesn't help when 3 of your top 5 players are on the injured list.
No.
And with Kevin Hayes out, I would say he is a top 5 player for us.
Yep.
There's 3 players right there that are out, and one of them may not even return this year. So that's not helping us. But they're not capitalizing on opportunities, and they're not scoring first, and that makes a difference. So we'll see how things go tonight in San Jose, and hopefully we can at least salvage 1 victory on this road trip.
Yeah, and that California road swing has been tough on all the Eastern teams. So that's one of those that everybody's got to do every year.
That's right.
And how you do on that road swing can sometimes make or break a season, but it's usually a good test for everybody.
Was 3 of those teams are in the playoffs right now? Colorado,
LA, Anaheim. Let's see. Take a quick look at the standings.
Anaheim are in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, LA, Anaheim are on the outside looking in, but they are right there. The 8th place team is Colorado with 57 points. LA has 57. Anaheim has 55.
San Jose.
So all 4 teams in San Jose's got 59. They're in the 2nd spot in the Pacific. So all 4 of those teams on that trip are all playoff teams. Yeah. And in fact, it's the Western Conference is very. If they were to do a true 1 through 16 and not take into account conference schedules, I think right now, I could be wrong, but just taking a quick glance, you'd probably have 10 of the 16 teams from the West in the playoffs, and then only 6 from the East. That's how it would shake out if they did a 1 through 16 bracket instead of having 8 from the East, 8 from the West. But so it just seems like the teams out West as a whole, top to bottom, are stronger than they are in the East. But yeah, speaking of Colorado, they had what, a 10-game winning streak?
Yep.
Going, so that's obviously propelled them into the playoff picture. And I saw a thing. Was it last night or the night before? I saw a thing where somebody asked Nathan McKinnon whether or not the Matt Duchene trade had any factor on Colorado's play, and he said it's been a very positive move for Colorado to get rid of him. So I thought, whoa.
and he's probably not being mean or rude by saying that. The fog of that trade held over that team for a long time.
And that's what he kind of explained. He explained, he went into the thing. He wasn't it. The first part of it, he's by saying, yeah, it was a good thing to have him get traded out of here. And at first glance, you're like, holy cow, he's throwing all kinds of shade his way. But then he explained. He says everybody in the clubhouse knew that Duchesne wanted out, and like you said, it was a cloud hanging over the team. And once he finally got what he wanted, because he's the one that wanted out, it's not like the other players on the Avalanche wanted him to go. He's the one that wanted out.
Right.
And he said once they got rid of him, they knew that everybody in the clubhouse was there, was committed, wanted to be there, and is happy to be on the team. And ever since then, the team's come together, and really, they've just started playing really well pretty much since that trade. And for Ottawa, things have gone in the opposite direction. Although they started sputtering before the trade, but the trade kind of made things, or at least appears to have made things even worse for the Ottawa Senators. So, but yeah, they were starting a downhill spiral before that trade. So you can't really blame the spiral on Duchesne either. So, but Duchesne certainly hasn't helped matters any. He certainly didn't help stop the spiral.
That's right.
They've pretty much spiraled all the way down almost to last place in the East. So yeah, those were tough games for the Rangers, to say the least.
Yes.
And Carolina has had an equally tough week. They had 3 games last week. They had a 3-1 win in Detroit coming off their bye back on the 20th. And then in the last 2 games, they had a 5-1 loss at home against Vegas on the 21st and a 3-1 loss at Pittsburgh on the 23rd. And I actually went to the Vegas game. My son and I went. We were able to find upper bowl seats through SeatGeek for $19 a seat.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We were about 4 rows up in the upper bowl, so we had several rows, probably 10, 12 rows behind us of seats. So we weren't by any stretch in the very top of the building, but we had we were sitting behind it, kind of in the corner, really, of one of the corners, looking down on the ice from way up high, and got a good look at Vegas in that game. Because one of the questions I had going in, I really, really wanted to see Vegas play live. Just because there's the novelty of the having a new team, but also I wanted to take a good, strong look at them from a different perspective than what we can see on TV, to see why they are playing so well, and why they are dominating the NHL this year, despite not having any superstars to speak of. And from just my observations, it just seems like they're just flat out outworking the other team every night. And that was clear in this case. They were up 3-0 in that game before the seats were even warm from sitting in them. I mean, it was bang, bang, bang. And of course, Carolina has been spot starting Scott Darling, and everybody knows the struggles that he's been going through this year. And they're trying not to use him too much because they're working a lot with him off the ice to try to get his game turned around. Because a lot of the problems with Darling right now is just mental. It's not he can't physically play the game. It's just he's in his own head at this point. And it was clear that against Vegas was not going to go his way. And the first 2 goals, I can't really blame him because the Carolina defenseman left guys wide open in front of the net. But the third goal was a shot from above the circles, just a kind of a wrist shot. It wasn't really that hard, and he completely missed it, and it went over his shoulder and into the net. And I felt bad for him too, because the crowd was really getting on him after that third goal. And then that was right then that they went and made the change to Cam Ward, and the crowd actually cheered when they switched to Ward,
Yeah.
which until this season started, there's been a lot of negativity towards Cam Ward from the fans as well, because Cam Ward has his own struggles in recent years. So the goaltending situation there in Carolina is a big part of the problem with them struggling. You know, they're one of those teams that they're close. You know, as we speak right now, they're 5 points out of a playoff spot. They were closer than that before. They were actually in that number 8 spot for a couple of days, as recently as 2 weeks ago. So they're right there. There's two things that in my mind that Carolina is missing right now. Number one is a clear number one, bona fide, without a doubt, this is your number one guy goaltender.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing they're missing is a number one center. They've got Jordan Stahl doing that role, and he's not a number one center. He's a third line center, maybe low end second line at best. But they've got him in that number one center role. And, of course, the injury to Sebastian Aho is not helping matters any either.
Right.
But bright spot on the night, though, they had the new owner in-house, and he's the one that rang. You know, the Carolina Hurricanes do this. They have a hand crank hurricane warning siren that they use in the building to start off when the team comes out onto the ice, and they do the hurricane warning sign just as the team's coming out. Well, it was the owner of the team, the new owner, Tom Dundon himself, doing the sounding of the hurricane warning siren. So
that's cool.
That was kind of neat. That's something that you wouldn't have seen from the previous owner. That's for sure. Yeah. So, and he's very excited about this team. So, or becoming the owner. So it's a lot of energy there. They've been drawing pretty well since the new owner officially took over. They haven't had less than 15,000 in the building. This game that I went to was, I think, their third home game since the new owner officially took over, and all 3 games was 15, 16. I think we even had a 17,000 night. So the excitement seems to be starting to come back with this team. But they need to figure out a way to start winning games because they're falling quickly.
Yeah.
Two losses this week did not help them, especially one of them against Pittsburgh, a team that they're fighting with for one of those last playoff spots.
Right.
So anyway, let's hope Carolina can turn things around, and they should. We'll talk about what they've got coming up this week, but they've got a couple of games coming up. One tonight and the first game coming out of the All-Star break are definitely winnable games, both against teams that are below them in the standings. So, if there's a must-win in there, both of these games I would label a must-win. But we'll talk about those in a bit. Let's move on to the Bruins. They actually had a fairly light week over the past week, but their streak is continuing. The streak is now up to 17 games without a regulation loss. They had a 4-1 win at Montreal on the 19th and a 3-2 win against the Devils on the 23rd. The 3-2 win against the Devils, I only saw... Well, actually, I saw most of that game. I think I missed the first period due to working. Mm-hmm. And the Bruins didn't have their best game that night, but it was good enough to get the win. And something there, and I didn't catch what happened, but Corey Schneider didn't play the third period of that game, so I'm not sure exactly why. I missed that little detail. But in that game against Montreal, the 4-1 win, that's the third time that they've beaten Montreal in 8 days. All 3 were wins. One of them was via shootout, but all 3 were wins for Boston, and this one was pretty much Boston's game from start to finish. They did not leave Montreal with much fight in that game. So good win for the Bruins on that front. I mean, those are games you got to win against teams that are down in the standings. you gotta hit those teams when they're down. So
That's right.
and then of course the 3-2 win against the Devils. And we'll talk about an incident that happened in that game a little bit later in the show, but we'll get into that a little bit. But now the Bruins, like I said, are 17 games without a regulation loss. They have now 10 regulation losses on the season, which is the fewest in the NHL right now. So
Playing very good, man. I got to say.
So what the Bruins are doing well is when they do lose, they're at least getting a point out of them.
Right.
So, very impressive.
Yes.
I'm liking. A little nervous though because we've got a couple injuries and stuff going on. So, if we can get through this little period, we'll get to it and we'll get into the details of all that. But
right.
Did you have any other games that you had seen that you wanted to talk about? There was one in particular that not so much that I want to get into too much detail on. It was a score I saw earlier in the week, and I can't remember what night it was, but Edmonton lost to Buffalo 5-0.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about, Edmonton's had all kinds of struggles this year. To lose 5-0 to a team that is headed for one of the top lottery picks is just, in my mind, is completely unacceptable. They've got to figure out what's going on in that clubhouse and figure out what they need to fix.
Well, I did not see that game, but I will tell you that forget about Edmonton making the playoffs. They're not going to.
Yeah.
It's over. That one I can pretty well tell you that's over. And if you look at the standings, the Chicago Blackhawks are in the twilight zone right now. Having the experience and the core that's won 3 Stanley Cups may keep them afloat for a while, and they may get back into it. But the Chicago Blackhawks are in danger of being out of the playoffs in my mind too.
Yep.
So.
And let's take a quick look at the playoffs because we haven't done that in a couple of weeks. Right now, in the Central Division, your top 3 are Winnipeg, Nashville, and St. Louis, with 65, 63, and 61 points. In the Pacific, Vegas is at 68 points, San Jose at 59, Calgary at 57. Right now, the 2 wild cards in the West are Dallas with 60, Colorado with 57. And on the outside looking in, you have Minnesota 57, LA with 57, Anaheim 55, and then a 4-point drop to Chicago at 51, and then another big drop to Edmonton at 45, Vancouver at 44, and Arizona way back with 33 points.
Yep.
So like you said, Edmonton definitely is out along with Vancouver and Arizona. Chicago is getting close.
Yep.
Because they are now 6 points behind a playoff spot, and Colorado has a game in hand on them.
Colorado's a game in hand, and also, Wayne, what we always talk about, I know you bring it up a lot, they've got to climb 3 teams, Anaheim, the Kings, and Minnesota, and still aren't in a playoff position.
Yep.
They got to get past those 3 teams. So, and here we are, 48 games they've played, playing tonight. So they're not, their chances, what did we say? 95 points. So they need 44 points in, what is that? 34 games.
Yep.
44 points in 34 games. And that's if it's 95 points.
That's doable if you get back to the old Chicago.
It's doable for them. I agree. Yep. But they got to step on the gas now.
Yep.
And you know what I'm saying? I think in a couple of weeks after the All-Star break, you'll know.
Yep.
Hey, they're going to make it or they're not. It's that simple. They have to go now.
Yep. Yeah. The Blackhawks are 4-5-1 in their last 10. So. That's you can't continue that for much longer if they want to stay in the playoff hunt. And quite frankly, as much as Chicago's won, they've 3 cups in the last 6 or 7 years. I would be perfectly fine with a playoff year without the Chicago Blackhawks in there, if you ask me.
And so would all the rest of the teams in the Western Conference.
Right. But and a big part of the problem in Chicago not only is they pretty much their depth. I mean, you've got those two giant contracts in Kane and Taves that eat up so much money. And Duncan Keith isn't cheap either. Seabrook, he's getting paid pretty well.
And they lost Artemi Panarin.
They lost Panarin. Crawford's been hurt, so they're using less than ideal goaltending, and that's been a big part of their problem. So they've had a lot of issues there in Chicago, and they're right up against the cap, so it's not like they can do a lot to fix it either. So, but I did just notice, we were talking about at the top of the show, 30 teams playing tonight. The one team that's not, the LA Kings.
Is the LA Kings, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everybody else is playing tonight. So, but anyway, Chicago's in trouble. Edmonton is done. Anaheim, LA, Minnesota, they're all right in the thick of it. They're only 2 points back, or one, or even tied. So the West.
I think those three teams too, Wayne. Excuse me for interrupting.
Yeah.
Those three teams are gonna go all the way. I think those three teams are solid.
I think we're gonna
they'll fight. They'll duke it out all the way.
We're gonna have it so that going into the last week of the season, there's going to be at minimum 4, probably as many as 6 teams vying for those last 2 wild card spots.
Yep, I agree with you.
In the West.
Right on.
Which is going to make games between all those teams from here on out a lot of fun to watch.
Yep.
Because at this point, those are pretty much playoff games in January and February. So,
yep.
Playoff hockey this early in the year is not a bad thing for us.
Oh no. It's great watching hockey at night. I tell you, you flip back and forth. There's at least 2 or 3 games.
Yep.
That are piquing people's interest.
Yep. And I usually start when it's a busy night like this. I'll have the Bruins or the Canes on one screen the whole game, and then on another screen I'll start with the East, and I'll just watch the end of every game that's going on, because you can see. On the NHL website, which game is going to end next,
right? Based
on the time that's left in the third period. So I'll just go right down the row and watch the last, and as many as 10 minutes in every game, or as few as 2 or 3 minutes in every game. I'll watch the end of every single game, so we get to see a little bit of every game anyway.
Yeah.
And then I'll usually keep NHL Network on, and they do highlights throughout the night. So yeah, that's the West. It's just jam-packed as ever. It looks like there's only 3 teams that are completely out. Chicago Blackhawks are sitting right firmly on the bubble right there. But let's take a look at the East. East is a completely different story. You've got Tampa Bay in first place in the Atlantic with 69, Boston in second with 64, and Toronto in third with 59. In the Metro, you've got Washington with 61, New Jersey with 56, Philadelphia with 56. And then the wild cards are 2 more teams from the Metro, Columbus with 55, Pittsburgh with 55. And then on the outside looking in, you've got the Rangers at 53, Islanders 53, Carolina at 50, and then the rest of the Atlantic Division, Detroit with 46, Montreal with 46, Florida with 44, 39 from Ottawa, and 35 from Buffalo. So the Atlantic Division is pretty much all but done in my mind. You've got, obviously the Atlantic is going to have only 3 teams in the playoff this year. And it looks to be right now, unless there's a monumental collapse by one of them, it's going to be Tampa Bay, Boston, Toronto. And right now it's shaping up for a Boston-Toronto first-round matchup, which will be an interesting watch for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Because the team below Toronto, you got 59 points for Toronto. The next team in the Atlantic is Detroit with 46. That's a 13-point swing right now from third to fourth place in the Atlantic. So
those are your 3 teams.
Yep.
That's how it's going to be.
Yep.
And you can pretty much put a fork in the rest of it. I don't think you're going to see another team get in as a 4th team from the Atlantic Division. I really don't.
Yep. So right now you've got Detroit, Montreal, Florida, Ottawa, Buffalo are pretty much forks are firmly in there.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with the Metro, which is a dogfight, and it's going to continue to be a dogfight. You've got Carolina, who's sitting in dead last in the Metro, but they are just 5 points out of a playoff spot. And they were closer.
Oh, yeah.
They were, a couple nights ago, they were, before this 2-game losing streak that they're on, they were either only 1 or 3 or something very close out of a playoff spot and still in dead last.
Right.
So the Metro is going to be an 18 dog fight to see who gets those 5 playoff spots.
Yep. There may be one team drop off, but that'd be it.
Yeah. And right now it's looking like Carolina. If they don't start putting a string of wins together, they're very much in danger of falling out of the race.
Yeah.
They need their Aho back. We'll put it that way. So, all right, let's move on to some of the stories that have happened over the past week, starting with transactions, of course. And the first one is actually kind of an off-the-ice transaction that I wanted to note. The Edmonton Oilers tapped a resource from their storied past when they added Hockey Hall of Fame defenseman Paul Coffey as skills development coach on Sunday. Coffey, who's 56, was on the ice for practice at Rogers Place and will be asked to mentor defensemen in particular, including prospects in the Oilers system. And there's actually quite a few. This article listed a whole bunch of prospects that they've got. But they're all like middle-round prospects, 3rd, 4th, 5th rounders. Coffey is the second highest scoring defenseman in NHL history with 1,531 points in 1,409 regular season games, and he is behind only Ray Bourque, who has 1,579 points. He won the Norris Trophy as the best defenseman in the league 3 times, was NHL first-team All-Star 4 times, and was named one of the 100 greatest NHL players presented by Molson Canadian during the league's centennial season. What a great guy that they have tapped to help with their defensemen, because that has been a major problem for them for several years now. Their forwards haven't been a problem. You've got McDavid and Nugent Hopkins and Payarvi, and you've got a plethora of talented forwards on this team
that are playing well a lot of nights.
Yep.
But
their defense has been a major weakness for this team for quite some time. So bringing on Paul Coffey, it'll be interesting to see if he can make some hay with this team. It's probably too late for this year, but maybe he can do some work to get this defenseman core back to respectability there in Edmonton, because this team is too good to be that low in the standings where they are.
Agreed.
All right, next story I've got. Columbus Blue Jackets acquired goaltender Jeff Zatkoff from the LA Kings in exchange for future considerations. And the only other transaction I had this week, the Arizona Coyotes acquired defenseman John Ramage. I almost said Rob Ramage. from it's probably related to, I think it might be his son. John Ramage from the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for future considerations. So, and both those players, Zatkoff and Ramage, reported to their respective minor league teams, their American Hockey League teams. So these were 2 very minor trades in the grand scheme of things. And unless there were other transactions, that's all I had for this week. Nothing major.
Nothing major.
Yep. All right, let's move on to some injuries. And in this category, there were some major ones. LA Kings goalie Jonathan Quick will not attend the 2018 Honda NHL All-Star Weekend because of a nagging injury, Kings general manager Rob Blake said Wednesday. It's day-to-day, Blake said, with his history of injuries. We're not risking that in this 3-on-3 format. He's not 100% healthy, and he needs time to heal. If he does not play in the 2018 NHL All-Star Game on Sunday after being selected to the Pacific Division team, he must sit out 1 regular season game. That could either be against the Flames tonight or the first game after the All-Star break at the Dallas Stars on Tuesday. If Quick is the Kings' backup to Darcy Kemper against the Flames, he would have to sit out against the Stars. He's 20-17-2 with a 2.44 goals against average, 921 save percentage in 39 games this season. He's played 17 games last season, or he played just 17 games last season when he injured his groin the first game at the San Jose Sharks. And then in a related story, Calgary Flames goaltender Mike Smith was added to the roster for the 2018 NHL All-Star Game in Tampa. The NHL announced today. Smith replaces LA Kings goaltender Jonathan Quick on the Pacific Division roster. So Quick is out. Mike Smith is in for the Pacific Division. And as far as this goes, looks like the way the rules are set up, obviously for players and goalies, it's a little bit different, but you have to sit out a one-game suspension if you are selected to play in the All-Star Game and choose not to go. You either have to sit out the game before the break or the game after the break. But in the case of goaltenders, sitting out means you don't dress. It's not because goaltenders there could have been a built-in loophole there where, well, sit him out. We'll just start our backup and have the starter on the bench. No, he has to be completely off the.
He has to be up in the press box.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So they have to bring in another goaltender to back up Darcy Kemper. So it'll be interesting. I don't know if I just assume just get the game over with and have him sit tonight.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then bring in Kemper, but they gotta have two goalies dressed, so they'd have to be able to get their minor league goalie into town quick enough to, no pun intended.
Right.
All right, another big injury. San Jose Sharks forward Joe Thornton is expected to miss several weeks because of an injury to the MCL in his right knee. Thornton was injured when teammate Michael Boddicker fell on him with less than a minute remaining in the third period of a 5-4 overtime loss to the Jets on Tuesday. Thornton will have an MRI on Wednesday, and I didn't catch up with that to see what the results of the MRI were. But I don't believe that's changed. He's still going to miss several weeks. The Sharks recalled forward Marcus Sorensen from San Jose, the AHL, and placed Thornton uninjured reserve. Thornton, who's 38, has 36 points in 47 games so far this season. He had surgery on the MCL and ACL of his left knee during the offseason. That injury was sustained on April 2nd and caused Thornton to miss the first two games of the Western Conference first round against the Oilers. Thornton returned to the lineup for games 3 through 6, and the Sharks lost in 6 games. And I believe, if I remember right, I don't have it in front of me, that he got either a single goal or a single assist in those games, and he just wasn't his normal self.
No, and you could tell it. That's right.
Yeah, that there was something up. Thornton in his 20th NHL season is 16th all-time in scoring with 1,427 points in 1,493 games with the Sharks and Bruins. He's 12th with 1,030 assists, 3 behind Mario Lemieux for 11th place. So he's almost caught Mario.
Yeah. So. Hey, Wayne, he's had a great career. We poke fun and everything. Joe Thornton has had a great career, not just a good one. He's he's a Hall of Famer, okay?
Oh, yeah, first ballot.
At some point.
Yep.
Maybe first ballot. And I think we're seeing him play. If this isn't his last year, it's pretty darn close. He's been plagued by knee injuries
recently,
and,
yeah.
He's up there, in his age. So I'm sorry to see this happen again. That for San Jose's sake, but I don't think I think they need to look to find the replacement for Joe Thornton if they don't already have him.
Yep.
And make that start to happen.
Agree. Yep. And and he'll go down unless the Sharks somehow find a way to win the Cup this year. He'll go down as probably one of the greatest players to never win the Stanley Cup.
Yep.
Because I don't see Well, the Sharks will make the playoffs, so there's always a chance they could get hot and end up winning the thing. But I don't see more than 1 or 2 more seasons for Thornton, if that. I agree with you there.
He may come back for a swan song next year, but I don't see Joe Thornton in any team's uniform.
But yeah, he's definitely a great player.
Yep.
For sure. All right, now to a younger player that's having some injuries, and this one sounded scary when I first saw it. Boston Bruins rookie defenseman Charlie McAvoy is expected to be out at least 2 weeks after having a procedure to correct an abnormal heart rhythm on Monday. He was out of the hospital and resting comfortably Tuesday after having the procedure Monday to retreat an abnormal heart rhythm. Everything went well. Coach Bruce Cassidy said, "My concern and our concern as an organization is obviously his health going forward. Whatever time he needs to recover, his health is our number one priority. He's doing terrific, and we'll see how he recovers from there." Cassidy said McAvoy will be out through the All-Star break this weekend and would be reevaluated next week, although the anticipated recovering time of 2 weeks would have him out until February 6th when the Bruins visit Detroit Red Wings. McAvoy experienced heart palpitations during the Bruins game on November 26th. After being evaluated by doctors, he was diagnosed with supraventricular tachycardia, which in his case was not considered to be dangerous to his health, but could reoccur at any time and cause significant symptoms, according to a statement by Bruins internist Dr. David Finn. Mm-hmm. To correct the issue, McAvoy opted for an ablation because of the high likelihood of reoccurrence. McAvoy, playing on a pair with captain Zdeno Chara, has 25 points and is plus 18. He's averaging 22:49 of ice time and has played 23:56 in a 4-1 win versus the Montreal Canadiens on Saturday. With defenseman Adam McQuaid and Kevin Miller recently back from injury and illness, respectively, the Bruins can revert to the pairs that they've used in the past, with Carlo playing with Chara, Krug with McQuaid, and Grzelcyk with Miller. So, big test for the Boston Bruins in this point.
Yes.
Because Charlie McAvoy, we all know how great Zdeno Chara is. But McAvoy has been a huge, if not the biggest part of the Bruins' defense so far this season.
Right.
For such a young player to see how well he has played is very exciting for any Bruins fans.
Absolutely.
He's got no fear. He's got very confident player, not afraid to take chances, and when he does, he recovers quickly from them. The biggest thing he's contributed to the Bruins is as he has been able to single-handedly take that puck out of the zone or pass it out for the Bruins better than any other defenseman that they've got.
Right.
So getting out of your own zone is always a big part of any team's success.
I'm going to say something from a different tact, Wayne. Okay?
Yep.
Heart arrhythmia is a common thing. It is not uncommon.
No.
Even for athletes, it happens.
Yep.
So the fact that they can correct it and it happens to be Charlie McAvoy, if you're a Bruins fan and you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I wouldn't worry. I really wouldn't. And, he should be monitored. They should watch it, but it is not something that is out of the ordinary. It happens. It's more common than people realize, I think.
Yeah.
Especially if your blood pressure is borderline or, there's any number of reasons for it. So I did want to say that and alleviate some concern.
Yeah, in fact, I saw on Twitter too. One of the other podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis is the, of course, there's many that are put out by different groups and fans and Press and anything, that are Bruin-centric podcasts where the whole point of the podcast is talk about the Bruins. One of the ones I listen to is the Black and Goat Hockey podcast. And
which is a great podcast. I'm going to put a plug in for those guys again, man.
Yep. And one of the hosts, there's 3 hosts on that podcast. One of the hosts, Court Lalonde, I saw a tweet from him earlier in the week that he had that same procedure that McAvoy has.
Okay.
And one of the things I'm looking forward to is getting his take, where he's personally gone through it. Get his take on this, because I just don't know. It's not something I'm familiar with. So
right.
So, but they're making it out to be something fairly minor. It's something that they have to watch and monitor and and manage, but it's not something that will slow him down anytime in the future.
Right.
So that's the good news in that one. But for the time being, they're going to be without McAvoy for a couple of weeks, and that'll be a good test to see if the Bruins can weather that little bit of a storm to be missing arguably their best defenseman. So, all right, let's move on to the Tampa Bay Lightning. And one of their forwards, Andre Palat, will be out 6 to 8 weeks because of a lower body injury. Palat was injured during the third period of a 5-2 loss against the Wild on Saturday. In 46 games, Palat has 30 points and is a plus 17. He has 248 points in 6 NHL seasons, all with the Lightning. This is good. This is kind of a, he's not one of the top scorers on this team, but he's a major cog in this team.
Right.
And having him out, especially with Victor Hedman out, is probably a good reason why the Tampa Bay Lightning have come back down to earth there a little bit in recent weeks. So yeah, he'll be out for a little while.
Right.
So Tampa Bay, it'll be just give more playing time to some of the younger players. So when he does come back, that'll make them that much better. But as if they're not good enough already. So. All right, next one, New Jersey Devils goalie Keith Kincaid and forward Brian Gibbons were placed on injury reserve on Sunday. Kincaid was injured in a 3-1 loss to the Flyers on Saturday at 12:15 of the first period after trying to make a save on Ivan Provorov's goal. He made 4 saves on 7 shots before leaving and was replaced by Ken Appleby. Gibbons, who has not missed a game this season, was injured when he blocked a shot during the second period on Saturday and will be reevaluated on Monday. Gibbons has 23 points and is tied for second in Devils in goals. So yeah, that's 2 injured goalies there for the Devils. You got now Schneider out, and now Kincaid is out.
Yes.
So that puts New Jersey into emergency mode for a bit there for goaltenders.
Right. You don't want to hear what I really have to say, do you? I can't stand the Devils. So I'm glad. I don't like you don't like to wish anybody going down because of injuries. But whatever happens that brings them down.
Yep.
I hope that these guys recuperate and get better and, etc. But I can't stand the Devils, and if we can catch them, we can catch them. So I'm sure they do the same thing, Devils fans, with the Rangers. So
yep.
That's the way it is.
And the Devils are by no means in a comfortable spot there. They're only, they're only 1 point up on that 8th spot. So
right.
So if they lose a couple of points, they're now sitting in 8th, or could be even worse. The Rangers or the Islanders could catch them, and New Jersey could be on the outside looking in. So yeah, they'll need to get their goalie situation solved here pretty quick. And speaking of goalie situation, Florida Panthers goalie James Reimer will be out at least 2 weeks with a groin injury. Coach Bob Bugner said on Thursday. Reimer was injured extending his right leg while attempting to make a save at 3:48 of the first period against the Dallas Stars on Tuesday. Harry Sateri finished the game for the Panthers, who lost 6-1 at American Airlines Arena. Reimer started 17 consecutive games and 18 out of 19 after Roberto Luongo sustained a lower body injury on December 4th, going 9-6-2 with a 2.58 goals against average and .924 save percentage. But he allowed at least 3 goals in 4 of his past 5 starts before Tuesday. Sateri is expected to make his second NHL start against the Capitals at BB&T Center on Thursday. The Panthers recalled goaltender Samuel Montembeault from Springfield of the American Hockey League on Wednesday. So, Florida Panthers are in a goalie emergency. Their top 2 guys, Luongo and Reimer, are both out now.
Yep.
And right now, the update on Luongo is there's still no timetable for his return. So,
groin. What do you think? We talked about it earlier.
And it looks like with Reimer struggling over the past several days, his groin injury may have happened a few games ago, and then he just aggravated it the other night.
Yeah.
And now he's out. So
we've speculated, but we both said we think that Luongo's out with groin.
Yeah. Yeah, groin injuries for a goalie are not fun because of the amount of beating that their legs take in terms of all the stretching and all that stuff that they have to go through. So, and Florida's in a spot too that they can't afford if they want to make the playoffs. Although we've already stuck a fork in them, but if there was ever a chance to make the playoffs, having your top 2 goalies is not a good way to go about it. All right. Did you see any other injuries besides these?
The only other one, of course, is Kevin Hayes, and he suffered from a lower body injury last week in the 2 games. In fact, it played a whole game the last game we won, if I'm not mistaken. But he has not appeared on this West Coast road trip. He's missed all 3 games. So not sure. I think it's a lower body injury, though, and I don't know his status, whether he's day-to-day or what his situation is. But he is out on injury.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, well, let's move on to suspensions and fines then. And let's get this one out of the way. Boston Bruins forward Brad Marchand has been suspended for 5 games without pay for elbowing New Jersey Devils forward Marcus Johansson during NHL game number 732 in Boston on Tuesday, January 23rd. The NHL's Department of Player Safety announced on Wednesday. The incident occurred at 18:01 of the third period. Marchand is considered a repeat offender. We could say that again. Under the terms of the collective bargaining agreement and based on his average annual salary, will forfeit, get this, $373,475. The money goes to the Players Emergency Assistance Fund. Well, so Marchand obviously is one of Boston's best players.
Right.
Probably one of their best goal scorers.
Right.
But he has a long history of being basically a cheap shot artist, to not put a finer, to put it bluntly.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he has a long list of slew foots and sucker punches and all kinds of these incidents that has gone on his career. And it started his rookie year, that stuff. It's not new with him.
Right.
He's been doing this garbage for so long. And I don't know why he continues to do it. I get it in the early part of his career when he was still fighting for playing time and he wasn't, a top line player. He's just trying to make a name for himself. I get it back then. But now?
Yeah. I think listen, I stick up for Brad Marchand. I think a lot of times if he retaliates, they crack down on him. They don't like to see him retaliate. Maybe that's not fair. but I think that's the case. I think a lot of times he's not the instigator. He retaliates.
Yeah.
I most of the time.
Yeah.
In fact, I can't think of a time where I haven't seen it where he's in retaliation.
Yeah. Well, in this case, he was the aggressor in this one.
And you don't know what happened prior to that. You don't know if something was said or there was some dirty play and he found his moment and unfortunately the ref caught him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because I'm gonna stick up for him. He's a shorter guy than most of the guys on the ice, and he just is not going to. If you go after, if it's a cheap shot, he's gonna get you.
Yep.
That's just the way he plays. That's the way he is.
Now, in this particular case, this singular incident by itself would not warrant a 5-game suspension. The reason he got so many games is the repeat,
right,
incident after incident, and it's just escalating now. So he's at a point now where he's really got to stop doing this, because if he continues, the suspensions are just going to get longer and longer.
Okay, and I know I'm gonna bring it all. Sidney Crosby gets away with murder. You and I both know. I mean,
yep.
He does very same stuff. Okay, and he doesn't get any kind of flack for his retaliation. And you and I both agree that he should.
Yep.
Many times.
Yep.
Be penalized by the NHL, particularly since he's supposed to be a role model, being one of the best players, if not the best player in the league. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and you're right, and I think the NHL, we've talked about it a lot, the consistency variation that seems to happen from incident to incident, why one guy just gets a fine, another guy gets a suspension, and so on and so on. But in this particular incident, and I've watched it many times over, and I'll always stress to people that, there's a bunch of fans out there that are just saying, get him out of the league. He's a cheap shot artist. These are anti-Bruins people. They just can't stand Marchand for what, for things he's done in the past. They just can't stand him because he plays for the Bruins, for one. And, obviously I'm a Bruins fan, but I just shake my head when these things happen. But in this particular case, I don't know if you saw the play.
I did not.
But it was not a, there are people out there that are attacking him that it was a premeditated attack on Marcus Johansson, and it was not that at all. Because what they do is they super analyze it.
What a good point that was you just made.
Yeah.
Premeditation and attacks and go ahead.
Yeah. But in this case, if you look at the game at full speed, which is all the ref on the ice has to see. He doesn't have the luxury of replay in the moment.
Right.
If you look at the game at full speed, it looked nothing more. And in fact, at first, to me, it looked like just a collision in front of the net. It looked like just the two players collided, and then all of a sudden Johansson goes down, he's holding his head. But it was only when they slowed it down and they showed it from a couple different angles that you could see that as Marchand was approaching the net, and at this point the goalie had just covered the puck, but Marchand was still on his way to the net, essentially crashing the net. As Johansson was approaching Marchand's stuck his elbow up and got Johansson right in the head with the elbow.
Right.
Now, had the elbow, and Marchand only did it like he was going, skating through his lane. Johansson was coming in from the side, and Marchand threw the elbow out there because he saw Johansson coming. Marchand claims that he was bracing for a hit from Johansson, that he felt that Johansson was about to hit him, So he was defending himself from that. Now, obviously doing it with the elbow is not exactly the right way to go about it, but that's what he did. And I've always maintained that if Marchand's elbow would have gotten his shoulder and not the head, we wouldn't be talking about it at all. It would be a completely forgotten play because on the ice, there was no call. No, there was no call in the play. There was no penalty. Like the referee, it looked like to him was a collision. Both players went down when they collided, but Johansson went down with a head injury. Marchand got up and skated to the bench.
Right.
So in this particular case, and it was only through basically hyper-analyzing the video where it became clear that Marchand deliberately stuck the elbow up as Johansson was approaching him. And that is why the NHL's throwing the book at him, because he made contact with the head. They're cracking down on head injuries or head contact. Though these are the biggest fines and biggest suspensions are coming from incidents where players are contacted via the head.
Right.
It's not, like we had earlier in the week. We had a guy with the Dustin Brown one. Or Evgeny Malkin. In fact, we got to talk about that one next. Hit Dustin Brown into the boards. Basically, just cross-checked him in the back. Dustin Brown went in face first. There was no head contact there. Tiny punishment compared to what Marchand got.
Right.
Even though both plays, to me, were equally as dangerous and equally as injury potential. But because this one was to the head, this is why they're really threw the book at Marchand on this one. So it frustrates me that Marchand does this stuff he continues to do this stuff when he doesn't need to, because he's too good of a player to be lost for 5 games. And hopefully this teaches him to at least stop hitting people in the head or stop doing this stuff. But at the same time, all these people that are attacking Marchand, calling it a premeditated attack. If you watch the game at full speed, if you watch the play at full speed, in no way that was a premeditated attack. It was a bang-bang reaction play. It's unfortunate that Johansson got his head injured, but it all happened in a split second, and because of Marchand's past history, he's paying a steep price.
That part is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And I know we got a lot to talk about, Wayne, but as I said before, you take a look at some of these players that are getting away with what they do, and they do premeditate.
Yep.
And they do set up time where they get away with it. And the NHL is in no position at this point to dock them 5 games because they've never called them out on it.
Yep.
That's the consistency that I would like to see.
Yep. And you're right.
Marchand's being called out for it, and but most of the times, as I said, it's in retaliatory mode.
Yep.
We're talking about players who go out there and get away with stuff, and I'm not talking about Radko Gudas type guys that don't care. They're going to do it anyways. I'm talking about guys that sneakily move their way in and premeditate on others and cause. I've seen Sidney Crosby slew foot a player and get away with it completely.
Yep.
Never get called out on it by the league.
Yep.
So I'm tired of that.
Yeah, they should punish them no matter who they are. You're right.
Right.
And unfortunately, Marchand got his reputation for being that type of player before he became one of the league's best goal scorers.
Right.
When he was just an average player. So, because he was a bit of a late bloomer in that sense. So now he's got that history that's kind of dragging him down. So, but yeah, you're right. There have been several incidents where I've seen, and we keep picking on Crosby, but he's not the only one, but he's the most prominent one of guys that get away with stuff that they really shouldn't be getting away with. So let's hope the league starts becoming a little bit more consistent on that front.
Right.
All right. Now, we'll breeze through quickly the Evgeny Malkin situation. Evgeny Malkin was fined $5,000, the maximum allowable under the collective bargaining agreement, for spearing L.A. Kings forward Dustin Brown during NHL Game 704 in L.A. on Thursday, January 18th. The Department of Player Safety announced on Friday. The incident occurred at 6:57 in the first period. So there's a case there. Spear, depending on how hard it is, could be serious injury if they spear him hard enough. He just got a fine. No suspension, $5,000 fine.
Yeah.
So and I didn't see the play, so I can't speak to how severe that one was, but it was obviously enough to get the league's attention, and they fined him. But for Evgeny Malkin, $5,000 is like $10 to you and me, so it's not much of a punishment there. All right, some of the other interesting stories that we have going around the league. Team Sweden announced their Olympic roster.
Yep.
Earlier this week, and the most notable player on there was Rasmus Dahlin, who is projected to be the #1 overall pick in this upcoming draft. He has made the Olympic team for Team Sweden, so he'll be one of the youngest players in the tournament this year. But he was named the best defenseman of the World Junior Championships, helping Sweden to the silver medal. He's 6'2", 181 pounds, and whatever team gets him is going to have a nice piece on their team. And he may be ready for the NHL next year. So I didn't notice any of the other players, or there wasn't any real big names playing for Team Sweden as far as the rest of that. Was probably the biggest name that I saw.
I think Elias Anderson's on that team.
Oh, okay.
And I could be wrong. I could be wrong on that, Wayne.
Yeah, I don't have the roster up in front of me on that one.
And I could be wrong on that, but for some reason I thought that they said he made the Swedish Olympic team.
Okay. Yeah, and of course Team Sweden is made up mostly of players that are playing in the Swedish Elite League and the KHL, just like all the other teams that are going to be playing in that tournament, because there's no NHLers this year. So be interesting to watch, but to see how Dahlin does against a much older crowd in the Olympics. All right, Tampa Bay Lightning forward Braden Point has been added to the roster for the 2018 All-Star Game in Tampa. Point replaces injured teammate Victor Hedman in the Atlantic Division roster, which I found curious because Braden Point, and he's had a good season, so he definitely deserves it, but he's a forward. Victor Hedman's a defenseman, so does that mean the Atlantic Division's going with a forward-heavy roster?
Yeah, that's a good point, Wayne. That is surprise. I just realized that now.
That leaves only 2 defensemen on the Atlantic Division roster and 10 forwards, which is kind of interesting. Unless we're going to see another move going the other way.
Yeah.
Because I've heard scuttlebutt that Crosby may be trying to get out of going to there, and I wonder if they could end up taking Crosby out and putting someone like Letang in to kind of even that up.
Right.
So we'll see. We'll see if Crosby's able to wiggle his way out of it. It seems like Crosby does this every year for the All-Star Game. He comes up with this phantom injury that happens to just appear out of nowhere, and he's taken more than his fair share of All-Star weekends off.
Right.
And I know that the league definitely wants Crosby at every one of them because he is a showcase player. So, so we'll see if he gets away with it again this year. All right, let's see. One of the stories I saw was kind of very interesting. There was a game earlier this week that did you see the Minnesota Wild game earlier this week against the Senators?
No, I did not.
They had a game in the middle of a snowstorm. Of course, both teams were already there, so they decided to go ahead and play the game. If this game was in Carolina, it would have been canceled for sure. But in Minnesota, they went ahead and played the game. They showed pictures of the arena with several inches of snow on the road in front of the arena. And as of 6 p.m., it was a 7 p.m. start Minnesota time. As of 6 p.m., 6 of Minnesota's players had yet showed up to the rink.
That's what.
And a few of them actually showed up just as the teams were getting ready to go on the ice for warm-ups.
Yeah.
So, and there was actually 2 players that got into a minor fender bender on the way in. They had a couple players that could only get their car because there was a bunch of traffic issues right around the arena. So they had a bunch of players that couldn't get their car any closer than a half mile to the rink. So the team sent out a valet to go pick up their car, and the player literally walked or ran from the last half mile to the rink. All kinds of stories surrounding that game. You'll have to look at the article. There's a link to the article in the show notes, talking about all the how all the players had a very difficult time getting to the rink. But all 20 players did, in fact, show up by the time the game started, so they didn't have to delay the game or anything like that. But a few players cut it close. So it was interesting. It kind of reminded me of the and in fact, there was a This Date in NHL History article this week about it. Do you remember the Devils Flames game from
Yes.
What year was it? It was
1987.
Yeah, 1987. Big snowstorm in New Jersey, or in the New York metro area. The New Jersey Devils played the Calgary Flames that night in front of a whopping crowd of 334 people.
Yep. I remember it very well. It was at the old Brendan Byrne Arena.
Yep. Of course, the Devils weren't that good. And, well, that was the first year that they started getting good, 87.
Yeah.
They made the playoffs that year, I think, for the first time ever. But, yeah, 334 fans showed up at the old Brendan Byrne Arena to watch the Flames play the Devils. And, in fact, the team was so impressed at those 334 hardy souls to show up, they created the 334 Club, where they gave...
Yes, that's right.
They gave every person who was there that night a T-shirt that commemorated that, they're a member of the 334 Club. Some of these people still show up to the games today wearing that T-shirt.
Yeah.
But they took names and addresses of all 334 fans that night, and they are all part of that exclusive club of Hardy Devils fans.
Yep.
I wonder how many were Flames fans of that group, or were they all Devils fans?
That's a good point. I'd be shocked if any of them were Flames fans, but
yeah.
I could tell you some.
This whole thing, Minnesota, and I watched part of that game because I was curious. I had heard that there were several players having trouble getting to the rink, so I turned that game on just to see what kind of crowds they got, and it kind of looked like a Carolina Hurricanes game in October.
Looked like an old Atlanta Thrashers game.
Right, with the arena three-quarters, almost, three-quarters empty. Yeah, a lot of people disguised as empty seats in that game. All right. And did you see the Austin Matthews goal where he signaled his own goal? I thought that was kind of neat.
You've got a couple of them on here, Wayne. I have not seen. I did not see that.
Well, again, there's a link in the show notes, but you can watch a video where basically what happened is Toronto or Matthews scored a goal. The referees disallowed it. In his next shift, he comes back out and scores another goal. And right after he scores it, he turns and points to the goal just like the referee would. He just put his hand down and just pointed at the goal right at the same time the referee did. And somebody snapped a picture so it shows both Matthews and the referee pointing at the goal. As if to say, damn it, that one counted. All right. So, yeah, that was just a neat moment. Did you see Johnny Gaudreau
I I have seen this. Yes.
is rooting for the
Well,
Eagles in the Super Bowl, which I
that's right.
found kind of fascinating because if any of you know Johnny Gaudreau, he went to Boston College. And, of
Yes.
course, the Eagles are playing the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. So I figured, well, he went to Boston College. He's got to be rooting for New England. Then they show him wearing an Eagles T-shirt. Well, of course, Johnny Gaudreau is also from the Philadelphia area, so
Yep.
so Gaudreau grew up an Eagles fan.
Yes,
But
and Wayne, I know you are a Patriots fan. I
of
know
course,
you're a big Patriots fan.
yep.
But I'm going to say that I'm pulling for the Eagles this weekend because they've never won a Super Bowl, and you have probably the best quarterback to ever play the game. So, and whatever happens this Super Bowl, that's the case. So I'm going to stick with Johnny Gaudreau on that one, simply because the Eagles have never won a Super Bowl.
Right. They've been
And so,
close a couple times,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, they've never won one.
You know, I if I was in Philadelphia, I'd be going to Geno's Steak to get a big cheesesteak for the game.
But yeah, there's a lot of articles or this article about Johnny Gaudreau. He's saying that a lot of his Boston College teammates, of course, are from Boston area, and even back in those days, that Gaudreau was always an Eagles fan, and the Boston guys would make fun of him because the Eagles have never won one, and and if they were to ever play each other, that New England would beat them hands down. Well, now they're finally getting all these guys are finally getting their chance to see it in real life. So,
Yep.
so I'm sure there's a good amount of money being wagered on that game between some of the Johnny Gaudreau and his former BC teammates. Kevin Hayes being one of them.
Kevin Hayes.
Yep.
Kevin Hayes. I don't know if he's a Patriots fan. He probably is.
He is. He is.
Yeah.
He's
I
mentioned.
wouldn't be surprised.
He's mentioned in the article because Gaudreau and Hayes were line mates at BC.
Yep.
But Hayes was a Patriots fan and Gaudreau an Eagles fan. So they've been smack talking each other ever since these two teams.
I'm hoping for a good game. You know.
Hopefully it should be. Yeah. All right. And let's see the last. Well, there was this article I saw today.
Yep.
Ottawa Senators owner Eugene Melnyk reached an agreement in principle with the National Capital Commission on Thursday to redevelop LeBreton Flats, a 53-acre parcel of the land the Senators could use to build a new downtown arena. Okay, the last time we talked about this, we've talked about this particular thing before.
Yes.
Melnyk was in a competition with another group to develop that piece of land. Well, now it looks like Melnyk has the bid to take over this piece of land, and the intention is they're going to build a new rink for the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah.
And it's going to have a practice facility with 2 NHL-sized rinks in it. Almost sounds like to me it's going to be similar to what Buffalo has up there, where they have the NHL rink, and then they've got a smaller 2,000 to 3,000 seat arena right in that same building, and then in Buffalo there's a third rink where it's just a rink. There's hardly any seating at all. So you got the big NHL seating rink, and then you've got the smaller rink, which actually there's a couple of colleges and high schools that use the smaller 2,000 to 3,000 seat arena right next door. And then, of course, there's another practice facility right next door to that. So 3 rinks all in that one complex at Harbor Center in Buffalo. Sounds like what the Senators are doing is going to be something similar to that.
Right.
So, but Melnyk did tweet out, "My goal has always been to provide the Senators with home ice advantage. Though there are still many hurdles to overcome, I'm thrilled to be one step closer to a more enjoyable fan experience and realizing a vision for LeBreton Flats." So that's the article in terms of that. So basically, they're taking a step closer to getting the Senators a new arena.
Yeah.
So they're not relocating anytime soon. All right. On to this one. We teased at the beginning of the show, the NHL coaches poll. TSN's Bob McKenzie, he's one of the top hockey writers for TSN, and probably one of the guys most in the know in terms of trading or trades, because he seems to know about the trades before they go public. He's got a lot of connections, this guy. He got in touch with all 31 NHL head coaches, and all 31 participated. And he polled them on various categories on what the coaches are saying are for these players or these categories. Starting with best player in the NHL. 14 coaches said Nikita Kucherov is the best player in the NHL. 14 coaches said Nathan MacKinnon is the best player. And I would imagine it probably breaks down East and West Conference, since the Western Conference get to see MacKinnon more than, you know what I mean?
Right.
So East versus West. But 2 coaches said Patrice Bergeron was the best player in the NHL, and only 1 said Connor McDavid.
Wow.
Nobody said Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
Which I found kind of interesting. All right, on to best goalie. Andrei Vasilevsky was voted the best goalie in the NHL by 26 of 31 head coaches. Followed by Sergei Bobrovsky, Connor Hellebuck tied at 2 votes apiece, and Carey Price getting 1. It was probably Montreal's coach that voted Carey Price. I'm sure each coach didn't vote for his own guy. Best defenseman, Victor Hedman got 17 votes. Drew Doughty with 12. Brent Burns with 1. John Klingberg with 1. Kind of interesting there.
That is.
That Hedman got the top vote.
Drew Doughty is having a great season.
He is. Yep.
I would disagree with that. I think Drew Doughty is the odds-on favorite right now for the Norris Trophy.
Well, of the 2, he's the only one playing, so.
Yep.
Best rookie. With 24 votes out of 31 coaches, Matthew Barzal.
He is a great player.
Is voted the best rookie, followed by Brock Besser with 4 votes, and Charlie McAvoy with 3. Best coach. And it was basically unanimous. 30 votes out of 31. And probably the one is the coach that got named here.
Gerard
Yep.
Gallant.
Gerard Gallant. Vegas Golden Knights.
Yep.
And who can argue with that? Look what he's done with that team.
You can't.
Eastern Conference champion. This gets kind of interesting. So they asked all the coaches who they felt will win the Eastern Conference championship, and Tampa Bay gets 22 votes. That's pretty much not a surprise. Mm-hmm. But what I felt was a surprise is 8 coaches voted the Boston Bruins.
Wow.
And 1 voted Pittsburgh. So that's your 31 coaches there. Western Conference. Nashville is the top vote getter with 16 votes, followed by Vegas at 7, Winnipeg with 6, Dallas with 2. No Chicago, no
No LA.
No LA, no Anaheim. And they're choosing Vegas not to there's still some doubters out there with Vegas.
Yeah.
Only 7 coaches felt that they would go on to win this conference championship. All right, now the big one. Stanley Cup champion. There are 6 teams that got votes for Stanley Cup champion. Top vote getter, Tampa Bay.
Yep.
With 19 out of 31 coaches. Number 2, Nashville with 5 votes. 3rd is Boston with 4. 4th is Pittsburgh with 1. 5th is Vegas with 1, and Winnipeg with 1.
That's interesting.
Yep.
That is.
So it seems like Tampa Bay is getting all kinds of love from the coaches right now.
Yeah.
But I felt that was a pretty interesting article.
Yep.
But again, it was something that I guess Bob McKenzie does this every year. I guess I missed it last year.
Yeah.
We would have talked about it. He contacts all the coaches right around the All-Star break and gets their mid-season poll, and this is what he came up with.
That's very good.
Yep. All right, let's move on to honors milestones. Toronto Maple Leafs coach Mike Babcock, former NHL player Ryan Smith, and Women's Olympic champion Danielle Goyette will be honored with the 2018 Order of Hockey in Canada. I find this award fascinating. I don't know why, but Order of Hockey sounds like a very very British thing, like a royalty thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They will receive the honor at the Hockey Canada Foundation Gala in Golf in London, Ontario on June 18th. Babcock has an NHL record of 622 wins, 372 losses, 150 overtime losses, and 19 ties in 15 seasons as coach of the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, Detroit Red Wings, and Toronto Maple Leafs. He coached Red Wings to the 2008 Stanley Cup, and they reached the final in 2009. He's the only coach in IIHF Triple Gold Club, having led Canada to Olympic gold medals in 2010, 2014, and a World Championship in 2004. He coached Canada to the championship at the World Cup of Hockey in 2016. Smith, who's 41, played 19 seasons with the Oilers, Islanders, Avalanche, and Kings. He retired after the 2013-14 season with 842 points in 1,270 games. He helped Canada win gold at the 2002 Olympics and played in the 2006 Olympics and the World Championship 8 times, winning gold in 2003 and 2004 and silver in 2005. Goyette. And Smith also won gold at the World Cup of Hockey in 2004. Goyette played for Canada at the Olympics 3 times, winning gold in 2002 and 2006. Won the gold medal 8 times in the Women's World Championship. Had 219 points in 172 games with Canada's national women's team during a 15-season playing career. And she is currently the coach for the University of Calgary women's hockey team. She was enshrined in the IIHF Hall of Fame in 2013 and the Hockey Hall of Fame this past year. The Order of Hockey in Canada was established in 2012 by Hockey Canada and has recognized 21 honorees, including Jean Beliveau, Wayne Gretzky, Gordie Howe, Mark Messier, Mario Lemieux, Pat Quinn, and Scotty Bowman. So I guess it's the best of the best of Canadian citizens that end up with this award.
Yeah. That is very interesting.
So it's almost like a step above Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But it goes to a Canadian citizen. So Americans, Russians, none of those people would be eligible for the Order of Hockey in Canada.
Very interesting.
So anyway. So, and did you see Marc Savard officially announced his retirement?
Yes, I saw that. I did see that, Wayne.
He hasn't played a game since 2010, 2011, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's had a lot of concussion issues. He's been fighting back. His contract actually ended after the 2016-17 season, but he hasn't actually played since the Stanley Cup year in 2011. Obviously battled through a lot of concussions. Actually, I think he played 2013. So anyway, he hasn't played in several years. Finally announced his retirement. Now he's looking to get into coaching, I guess, is the story there. So, all right, and the 3 stars of the week for the week ending January 21st are number 1, Nathan MacKinnon, number 2, Connor Hellebuck, and number 3, Brad Marchand. McKinnon registered 6 points in 3 games to power the Avalanche to a perfect week and their 9th straight victory, the longest such streak in the NHL this season. Hellebuck stopped 59 out of 60 shots in 2 games. So that's a save percentage of .983 if you're doing the math. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that is.
And then Marchand led the NHL with 7 points in 4 games to guide the Bruins to a 3-0-1 week, helping the team extended its point streak to 16 contests dating back to December 16th. So, and another story, the midterm rankings from the Central Scouting Bureau came out this past week.
Yeah.
And just a local note for us, our local boy Tyler Weiss, he was ranked number 71 on the list for North American skaters. Of course, the Central Scouting Bureau breaks them down. You have North American skaters, European skaters, North American goalies, European goalies. So there's 4 lists that the Central Scouting Bureau puts out. They put one out at the midterm or midseason, and then they'll put out another final ranking at the end of the year. And it's just the NHL Central Scouting Bureau that ranks all these players. And I think that's just a compilation of all the scouts and whatnot throughout the league that rank, that provide these rankings for the league. It almost makes scouting public, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, but our local boy is number 71, which would put him probably a 5th, 6th, 7th round draft pick at this point.
Okay. That's still very good.
Yep. To get drafted is an accomplishment around this day and age. So, and at one sad story to end this before we head on to the power rankings, Jim Johansson, Assistant Executive Director of Hockey Operations with USA Hockey and the GM of the 2018 United States Olympic men's team, died on Sunday. He was 53. Johansson, a 2-time Olympian during his playing career, both in 88 and 92, was a stalwart with USA Hockey since joining the organization in 2000 as manager of international activities and U.S. Olympic Committee relations. As USA Hockey executive, Johansson was part of the management team for every Olympics since 2002, when the U.S. won a silver medal in Salt Lake City. He was also part of the 2010 team in Vancouver that won silver. Among the most significant accomplishments during Johansson's tenure at USA Hockey were winning 64 medals, which is 34 golds, 19 silvers, and 11 bronze in major international competition, as well as helping launch and implement the highly acclaimed American Development Model and securing the USA Hockey Arena in Plymouth, Michigan as a home for all U.S. teams. Johansson from Rochester, Minnesota was 7th round pick of the Hartford Whalers in the 82 NHL draft. A center, he played in the International Hockey League with Salt Lake City, Indianapolis, and Milwaukee from 1987 to 94, after spending 4 seasons at the University of Wisconsin, where he won a national championship in 1983. So this was a very sudden passing. I learned about it actually at the beginning of the Carolina Hurricanes game, where they started the evening with a moment of silence for him because he passed away earlier that day. And I guess it was unexpected.
Right.
Because he was supposed to, well, he was the GM of this year's Olympic team. So,
right.
So it was very sudden passing, very sad. And players around the league were tweeting and, publicly sending their condolences to the family. So, all right, let's move on to the power ranking for this week. And I believe it is my turn.
It is your turn, Wayne.
All right.
Yeah.
I didn't take my approach that I went at last time it was my turn, where I just simply calculated points per game and ranked them accordingly. I kind of sort of did that, except that I also took into account how a lot of streaks that are going, both positive and negative. All right. So with that in mind, At number 16, I have LA. At number 15, who's dropped all the way from 8, is New Jersey. Number 14, I've got Philadelphia. Number 13, I've got Calgary, which is right where they were last week. Philly was actually outside the top 16 last week.
Right.
So they're now up in the top 16 because they've been playing very well of late. Number 12, I've got Toronto, who can't seem to decide whether or not they're going to be a good team or not. Number 11, I've got Minnesota. Number 10, I've got Colorado. Number 9, I've got San Jose. Number 8, Dallas. Number 7, St. Louis. Number 6 is Washington. Number 5, Winnipeg. And number 4 is Nashville. And the top 3 is the same as last week. 3 is Boston. 2 is Vegas. And number 1 is Tampa Bay. And had we done these rankings right after the Carolina Hurricanes game against Vegas, I probably would have had Vegas number 1 because they were on top of the NHL standings after that game. Yeah. But Tampa Bay has since taken that back over. So Vegas is now sitting number 2 in NHL in points. And for a few days there, they were leapfrogging each other. You know, one would win and jump up over the other, and then the other one would win and jump up over. So Vegas in the past week has been at the top of the NHL standings twice now. The first time was right after the Carolina game. And then a couple nights later, they won their next game and reclaimed that top spot over Tampa. But then later that night, Tampa won and reclaimed that top spot. So as we sit, Tampa's number 1, Vegas number 2 in terms of standings points. So some notable teams that are now outside the top 16: Columbus, Anaheim, Pittsburgh, the Rangers. I've got them outside. Sorry about that.
No, they don't deserve to be. I agree with you. I agree with this. This is a very good power rankings.
Chicago is outside. Our local team, Carolina, is outside. And that's it for teams that really should be playing better but are not. And I'm not even putting Edmonton in that group anymore because they're just not showing anything. All right, so let's take a look ahead at the week ahead of us. First and foremost, we've got the All-Star weekend coming up. So no games or no NHL games Friday through Monday. So 4 days off. In that time, of course, the All-Star weekend is in Tampa Bay. Saturday, you've got the skills competition and the mascot game, I guess, is another headline that's going on that weekend. And the mascot game is kind of fun, where all the mascots get on the ice and they all play a game.
Right.
And the skills competition follows that. And then on Sunday, you have you want to call it the All-Star game, but it's really the All-Star tournament, where the 4 divisions play a 3-on-3 tournament to decide who the winner is going to be. And that is going to be fun. A full 60 minutes of 3-on-3. I love it. It's going to be awesome. Yep. And then, everybody else who's not part of that is on break for 4 days. So with that in mind, the Bruins only have 2 games. The first one's tonight against Ottawa, and then they're playing Anaheim at home on the 30th. So got to have a win tonight against Ottawa. Anaheim, that could go either way because they're still going to be without McAvoy. They're still going to be without Marchand. I will probably give that one to Anaheim.
Right.
They may be the team that ends the streak. Carolina, on the other hand, has 2 games that are definitely winnable, and as far as I'm concerned, are must-wins for them. They're at Montreal tonight, and they are at home against Ottawa on the 30th. Both teams that they're playing are below them in the standings, so they really need to get 4 points in those 2 games.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned.
I agree.
And the Rangers also only have 2 games.
Actually, they only have 1. We play San Jose tonight, and we are off for a week.
That's right. They don't come back till the 1st.
We play on February 1st. I think it's against Toronto. But that'll be after we do our next podcast, probably, or at least the night of.
It'll
So,
be, I think, the night after we do the next podcast. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So, last game of the road trip tonight. Hopefully they can pull one out.
Yep. Yep. And they get essentially another bye week, which is kind of weird.
Pretty good, actually.
So, yeah. So, tonight there are 15 games around the league, and then there's nothing for 4 days. And then coming out of the break, there's 12 games on Tuesday night. There's only 3 games on Wednesday the 31st. And then another busy night on Thursday the 1st with 12 games. So, kind of an off and on week for us up ahead.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
let's move on to the minor league minute. And you said you saw a story about an outdoor game in Latvia. I'm interested to hear about that one.
Yes. You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. Wayne, with these outdoor games are a huge hit in the United States. And, if you think about it, I'm sure that Soviet television, or I call it Soviet, Russian television, Eastern European television covers the outdoor game. I'm sure those guys can watch it somehow, and probably do. So it was very interesting for me to read this week that they've actually had 2 outdoor games, and I believe this year they've had 2 outdoor games. Now, I do not know how many outdoor games in all the KHL has had, but last Saturday they had one, and they had one in a place that I just didn't think they'd have one, and that is in Riga, Latvia. They had an outdoor game, and there's actually pictures of it. If you go on the KHL website, or if you go on the team website for Dynamo Riga. The name of the article I pulled off the KHL, Dynamo Riga's team website, is entitled Riga's Winter Ice Break is a Hit. And that's what they called this game, the Winter Ice Break. It wasn't like the NHL calls it the Coors Light Stadium Series or our Winter Classic. It was called the Riga Winter Ice Break.
Okay.
And the article goes, the first ever open-air KHL game in Latvia was a big success, attracting a sellout crowd to the temporary tribunes in Riga and leaving the city authorities talking about making it an annual event. Dynamo Riga is renowned for putting on a good show at its games. But Saturday's showdown with namesake Dynamo Minsk was a bit special, even by Latvian standards. The teams met in the open air in front of an 8,500-person sellout crowd at a specially installed temporary arena in the Riga City Hall sports complex. Indeed, the official crowd was eventually tallied at 10,554, with more than 2,000 fans watching the action on big screens next to the rink itself. Now, if you look at the picture, it looks like high school football stands, which I'm sure you've seen. The metal stands set up, and they go up pretty high, actually, into the rafters, so to speak. And they had a giant jumbotron for people to watch. So it was set up pretty well. Now, I don't know if they had, what's his name, Jim Craig. I don't know if they had him come over there and advise them on setting up the outdoor ice.
I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
Dan Craig, I think. Yeah.
And it's pretty good, actually. The ice looked good. Despite Riga's difficulties this season, and if you look, they're currently in last place, and their head coach, a guy by the name, a Latvian hockey legend by the name Sandis Ozolan, left the team earlier this season. There was a festive mood around the game. For players and fans alike, it evoked fond memories of the old Korobka hockey, played on those small rinks found outside almost every apartment block in Soviet times and still popular today wherever they have escaped the covetous eyes of developers. And, in Moscow, they do have a lot of high-rise apartment places where people can, young men congregate and play hockey. It's just they set up rinks outside of those type places, and that's the Korobka hockey they're talking about. That crowd was treated to an exciting game, with the home team belying its lowly ranking in the early stages of the game to open up a 2-0 lead, thanks to goals from Brandon McMillan and Richards Bukarts. But Minsk was not to be denied and scored 2 goals in 64 seconds to tie the game. And then late in the third period, Minsk took the lead for the first and only time. Jack Skill scored the winning goal with 4 minutes to go. But the day was about more than the result, as Mayor of Riga, Nils Yuskovs, I don't think I said that right, explained. It's the first time we've had a game like this in modern-day Latvia, he said. It's important for us that it's more than an exhibition game, that is part of the KHL championship. We've already got plans to make this a regular event, to build up a bigger rink here. The city will always do everything it can to support it. It looks like open-air hockey in Latvia could be here to stay. KHL President Dmitry Chernyshenko rated Riga's winter ice break and Helsinki's ice challenge, which was earlier this year, I believe, as 2 of the real highlights of the championship. Both games will live long in the memory, he said. They have attracted big crowds of fans and even of people coming to hockey for the first time. After a festival like this, we hope many of them will come back regularly. Gertz Ankapars, head coach of the Dynamo Riga team, is completely behind the idea of making this an annual event. That would be great, he said. The atmosphere was fantastic. It's a pleasure to play in the open air. Even for a coach, it's a special experience. Goal scorer for Riga, Richards Bukarts, felt it was unforgettable. Absolutely everyone enjoyed the game. It was a great day, he said. I'm sure all the players will remember this for the rest of their lives. The only disappointment was that we couldn't beat Minsk and give our fans a victory to celebrate. So, kudos to a team. Here's a last place team in the KHL. They put on an event like this, and it is an overwhelming success. So outdoor hockey, it doesn't really matter where it is. Yep. It could be they could put together a rink in, wherever. I was going to name a Middle Eastern city. Name one. They could put one on there and it'll be a success. People come watch the game.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the pictures, and this particular venue wouldn't work for the NHL because the NHL likes to go for the big crowds, like the 60,000, 50,000, 70,000.
Right.
This wasn't that kind of venue. It looks like they set up the rink in the middle of a park and then surrounded it with temporary stands, temporary seating. But I'm looking at pictures, and the place was packed. What seating they did have, there was no room for anybody.
Gone.
Yep.
And think about it. They're the worst team in the KHL. They're in last place. And it's in Latvia, Riga. It's not, they could have a game in Zagreb. They could have a game in Siberia somewhere.
Yep.
They could have a game in Vladivostok for Pete's sake. It's in Latvia.
Yep.
And it's a sellout. They have a big jumbotron, 2,000 people standing around that watching the game. I think it's really exciting, and I think it's really great for the NHL to look at something like this and applaud it because it's great for hockey.
And they look cold.
I bet
it looks like the players. I'm looking at pictures where the players showed up. Looks like they got dressed somewhere else at another building, and then walked across in full gear.
Yeah.
Walked across a field over to where the rink is, but they're wearing their sneakers, so they must have put their skates on near the bench, which is kind of like the way it was when I was growing up. You put your gear on at home and you carry your skates, and then you put your skates on when you get rinkside.
Yeah,
but that's essentially what they did. Very neat.
Yeah.
Very neat. So
Thank you, Wayne.
I would like to see the NHL do it this style. Do it, set up a rink somewhere that's not a stadium, that's not a. But unfortunately, in the NHL, these outdoor games are a bit of a cash grab, and they're going to go for the big stadiums and the baseball parks and the football stadiums. That's where the NHL is going to hold their games.
Right.
And not in a park, essentially, is what they did here. They set up, temporary staging to hold up all the lights and the screens. Very neat. Yeah, I'm looking over the pictures now of that. Very, very small, intimate venue, but very fun. Cool. Good story. I didn't even see this.
Yep.
All right. Now, mine is talks about, we don't talk a lot about the Canadian Hockey League or the major junior hockey leagues in Canada, but tonight, as we speak, in fact, by the time you hear this podcast, unless you're watching us live on YouTube right now, there is a prospects game going on, and it's actually being broadcast on NHL Network. So if you have NHL Network, you probably catch the replay in the coming days. But basically what they do is every year the CHL has an NHL top prospects game. So they take the 40 top players from the from throughout Major Junior in Canada. So these can be OHL, Quebec Major Junior League, and Western Hockey League players. That not the ones that have already been drafted, but the ones that will be drafted this June, and they hold a game showcasing these 40 best players. And that game is going on pretty much as we speak. But Andrei Svechnikov, who's obviously a Russian player that has come over here to play, and Filip Zadina, another player from Europe who's coming over here to play, they are the two top players in the NHL Central Scouting's midterm rankings of North American skaters. Now, the reason they're calling them North American skaters is because they play here, even though they are European players. They're on the North American list because they're playing here, whereas the European skaters are players that are playing over there.
Right.
So it's where you're playing, not where you're from, that puts you on one list or the other. But anyway, Svechnikov and Zadina are playing in that game tonight, and they are the top two players on that midterm rankings list from the Central Scouting Bureau. And they are among 40 blue-chip prospects who are participating in the 2018 NHL Top Prospects game at Sleeman Center on Thursday. Oh, Carolina just scored a goal. My phone just went off, and I heard the. I love that the NHL.
He's gong.
the NHL app on Android. I'll just plug it real quick. If you turn on notifications, will play the actual goal horn from your favorite team when your team scores.
Oh, okay.
Now I've got both Carolina and Boston set up as favorites, so when either one of those teams score, I hear the goal horn. Like if the Bruins score, I'll hear their goal horn, and if Carolina scores, I'll hear their. I just heard Carolina's goal horn. I don't know if the microphone picked it up, but they just scored, so I don't even know what the score of the game is. But anyway, back to the prospects game. The game will feature 7 of the top 10 players in the NHL Central Scouting's midterm ranking of North American skaters, and 15 of the top 31 for the 2018 draft, which will be held June 22nd, 23rd at American Airlines Center in Dallas. And then the article goes on talking about, some of the individual players that you want to watch. But if you are listening to us live or are catching us after the fact, you may want to follow up on this. But it's just a showcase game of the best draft-eligible Canadian junior players, and that's going on pretty much now as we speak. We probably should have talked about this last week so that you could plan it and watch it. But anyway, and that's actually what's playing on my TV above me is that prospects game. So I haven't really been been paying attention to it. But that was my minor league minute. All right.
Very good.
Let's move on to the college hockey minute. We're starting off with Maine. They had 2 games against UNH last weekend, and they tied them both 2-2 and 3-3. They're now 6-6-3 in Hockey East, which is good for 6th place. and they're 12-9-4 overall. And those two ties actually dropped them a few spots in the pairwise. They dropped from 22nd to 25th in the pairwise rankings. Now, this weekend, they've got 2 games at UMass, and because UMass is below them in the pairwise rankings, these are must-wins for Maine if they want to continue to climb in the pairwise. Anything less than 2 wins against UMass will probably show them continuing to drop. So hopefully Maine will get things together there. They're kind of sputtering a bit as of late. As far as teams being upset over the past week, and I'm just waiting to pull it up here. There wasn't really anything huge that I saw. Michigan, who's the number 20 team in the country, beat Penn State on Friday night last week. Harvard, who's currently unranked, they were in the rankings earlier in this year. I'm kind of surprised by that. Tied Clarkson 6-6. Clarkson's the number 2 team in the country. One of the things that I noticed is Big Ten, of course. Big Ten Conference is not a big conference in the college hockey world. I believe they only have 6 teams, but every team in the Big Ten right now is ranked, just to show you how powerful the western half of the country is in terms of college hockey. But yeah, every one of their teams is ranked currently. But yeah, I didn't notice any big upsets in the world of college hockey.
I watched the game.
Which game did you watch?
I watched Wisconsin whoop up on Notre Dame.
Okay. 2 Big Ten teams.
5-0.
Yep.
So Notre Dame lost. They had not lost since I think November.
Yeah, Michigan beat Penn State twice. Actually, I'm looking at the scores. So yeah, Notre Dame's playing very well. You got Michigan beating Penn State 3-2 on Saturday night. And of course, they won Friday night as well. But other than that, there wasn't anything earth-shattering. But yeah, that Wisconsin game that you saw, you said there was a pretty good beatdown.
That was. Yeah, Notre Dame really never was in that game. But of course, Wisconsin's always good, right?
They're generally pretty good, yeah. Yeah, year over year. Denver's continuing to roll. They had a 4-0 win over Nebraska. Colorado College beat number 11 Western Michigan in overtime, if you want to call that an upset. Number 14 Minnesota Duluth beat number 7 North Dakota 5-2. That was a conference rivalry there. But yeah, nothing too earth-shattering. And yeah, the game you saw, number 1 Notre Dame getting shut out at Wisconsin. And Wisconsin was number 18 at the time. As far as big games coming up this week, though, if you want to watch some college hockey, like I said, the Big Ten right now, every team is ranked. So every game right now between 2 Big Ten schools is worth watching. And, of course, this weekend you've got Penn State at Wisconsin. Notre Dame is at Minnesota. That'll be a good series to watch. And then number 17, Michigan, is at number 6, Ohio State. So all 6 teams are in the top 20 right now in the Big Ten. As far as other games going on around the world, around the college hockey world, amongst ranked teams, you've got number 10, Providence, is playing at number 8, Northeastern. That should be a good game. Number 5, St. Cloud State, is playing at number 9, Minnesota Duluth. Number 12, Western Michigan, is at number 19, Nebraska Omaha. Number 4, Denver, is at number 11, North Dakota. That might be a game I'm going to try to watch.
Yeah.
Or try to catch one or the 2 of the games anyway. Because if they're at North Dakota, they're up there for 2. They don't go to North Dakota for just one game. It's it's like Maine.
Yeah.
And number 8, Northeastern, is playing at number 10, Providence, as well on Saturday night. And yeah, it's the same game Saturday night, pretty much. So yeah, we're marching closer to the NCAA tournament. We got about another month or so left, probably 4 to 5 weeks in most conference schedules before we hit the conference tournaments. Now, as far as pairwise right now, pairwise rankings sitting in the number 16 spot is Penn State. Number 15 is Michigan. Number 14 is Omaha. 13 is Northeastern. 12, North Dakota. 11, Minnesota Duluth. 9, Providence. 9, also 9, Minnesota. 8 is Western Michigan. 7 is Ohio State. Number 6 is Minnesota State. Number 4 is Denver. Also number 4 is Clarkson. Number 3 is St. Cloud State, and we have a tie at number 1 this week. Cornell and Notre Dame are both tied at number 1. So, like I've been saying, very Western heavy in the top tier of college hockey right now. All right, let's move on to our picks of the week. And I know you sent me yours, and I didn't write it down, so...
Mine is a real quick one, and I can get it out of the way quickly. I want to hear what you have to say about Tom Dundon. So if you want, I'll go ahead and go.
Yeah, go for it.
Blake Wheeler. He has a crew of kids, his kids, that are hockey crazy, I got to say. And if you went online on NHL.com, you got to see a real treat, because these 3 kids of his are as cute as they can be, the cutest buttons. And the pick of the week that I have this week is entitled "Blake Wheeler's Super Cute Kids Celebrate His Shootout Winner." Now he actually took some Instagram videos of his kids, and this must have been his wife. They are in front of the TV screen, and it is a shootout with Winnipeg going against the Calgary Flames, and you have got to see this. It is so funny. The 2 kids both recognize now. They can barely talk. They're young kids.
Okay.
I think his oldest is 5.
Oh wow. Yep.
Yeah. And they recognize that it's Blake Wheeler, on their dad, on the ice in a shootout, and they're like, "Oh, it's Daddy!" And he comes down the ice and scores the winning goal.
Nice.
And the 2 kids go bananas, and they don't stop, and they keep taking this. The video keeps rolling, and watching them cheer. It's great. I encourage all our listeners, go on NHL.com and watch that video. It's hilarious. But the name of the article again: Blake Wheeler's Super Cute Kids celebrate his shootout winner. Jets forward shares the video of excited little ones after their dad beats the Flames. Daddy shoots, Daddy scores. Winnipeg Jets forward Blake Wheeler posted a video of his kids on Instagram celebrating his shootout winner in a 2-1 victory against the Calgary Flames on Saturday. And boy, were they pumped up for, for their old man's goal. Hang on here. Blake's oldest son, Louis, and his daughter, Lenny, witnessed their father's heroics live, and the room couldn't contain their excitement. Wheeler even warned anyone who would potentially watch the video, writing a caption that said, "Might want to turn down the volume," with an emoji of a monkey covering its ears. Wheeler's youngest is probably a little too young to understand what a game-winning goal is, and as evidenced in a great family photo the Jets shared a few months ago, and that is a cute little picture of his family there. I guess they all get together in pajamas and watch the game. And while Wheeler has his shootout moves down, he may want to work on his face-off skills, at least when he is up against Lenny. And they do show him on his carpet, I guess, in his house, doing a face-off against his daughter. You gotta go online and look at these videos. They're really they'll touch you. They're really something to see his kids. So hats off to Blake Wheeler and his family. that's my pick of the week.
Cool. Very good story. And that's always nice to see the kids get involved for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, mine was, as everybody knows, the Carolina Hurricanes changed owners recently, officially. Sounds like they've, though, following the story, Tom Dundon has actually been getting involved with the team for a couple of months now, but he officially took over the team a week or two ago. January 11th is when he officially became the majority owner of the Carolina Hurricanes. But I found this article, and I was at the game on Sunday against the Vegas Golden Knights. But the article is from Tom Giuliti, a NHL.com staff writer, and goes as follows. Walking the PNC Arena concourse prior to the Carolina Hurricanes game against Vegas Golden Knights on Sunday, Tom Dundon was a popular man. So here he is, the owner of the team, walking the concourse where all the fans are walking. He's downstairs in amongst with all the fans, which I found is... Now, I didn't see him because I was down walking around the concourse before the game, but apparently he was down there.
Yeah.
Dundon blended in wearing a Hurricanes cap and black hoodie, but fans recognized the team's new majority owner anyway and were eager to welcome him to Raleigh. Many were season ticket holders who simply wanted to shake his hand and say thank you. Some were concerned about the Hurricanes' future before Dundon, the 46-year-old chairman and managing partner of Dundon Capital Partners, a Dallas-based private investment firm, purchased 61% of the team from Peter Kamanos. Since the sale was completed on January 11th, Dundon has been thrust into the spotlight. It's not a position he's comfortable in. Dundon believes the player should be the face of the team, but for now, the former CEO of Dallas-based Santander Consumer USA, who from 1995 to 2005, said he's willing to accept his role as fan favorite. That wasn't necessarily something I anticipated, and I was on the opposite side of publicity my whole life. I was trying to avoid it, he said. Now we need to rebuild this brand, so I feel an obligation to do whatever my part is. So Dundon revved up the crowd of 15,303 by cranking the hurricane warning siren and then headed to his suite to watch the game. It was his second game of the day. He spent the earlier part of the day in Charlotte watching the Hurricanes American Hockey League team play against Rochester. Watching the Hurricanes' 5-1 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights, he demonstrated how invested emotionally he's become in the Hurricanes, who entered Wednesday 5 points behind Pittsburgh for the second wildcard spot in the playoffs from the Eastern Conference. He seemed to live and die with each scoring chance, pausing the interview to blurt out, "Shoot that!" or correctly observe that Vegas James Neal, who scored his 21st goal later in the game, was the wrong guy to leave open in the right wing. This is the part that clearly I'm not cut out for, Dundon said after the Hurricanes fell behind 3-0. It makes me feel sick. Dundon has a lot of ideas and is figuring out much of this on the fly. He shared some of his plans with NHL.com while watching the Hurricanes loss to Vegas on Sunday. On his confidence in general manager Ron Francis and Bill Peters, he said, "My going-in assumption in most of the things I do is that people just need resources and structure, assuming they have passion, work ethic, and intelligence. Those guys clearly have those things. Once I knew that, now I've got to figure out what resources we need to provide them to go from there and where we want to go." On how much he's learned about the sport since he started following the Hurricanes in the preseason. "I've definitely learned some things, but it's hockey, and there are technical things that someone that played or coached hockey are going to know better than me. But I know enough to ask the questions that we can go between the scouts and the hockey guys and the data that we can come up with some philosophies that we can consistently make informed decisions and not emotional ones. That's my goal."
That's good.
On how involved he'll be in hockey operations, "I have no desire to tell anyone who to draft or who to play. I simply want to make sure we're prepared as an organization and that the decisions we make are debated and based on good information. If we can consistently do that, then the people that are here will get to keep making the decisions. There's a difference between when the odds are close and using your instinct and experience and when something's obvious. When things are obvious, you'd like to think the organization is going to go in that direction. That's kind of what I've seen so far. And if there's things that are debatable, they want the information. They hired the analytics guy before I got there. They're trying to find insights. A lot of it is just challenging in what you already know. On building a practice rink and his other initial plans, we got a guy named Eric Tulsky that runs the analytics department who is really good, but he's in essence a 1 or 2 man show. So I think we've got to make a much bigger commitment to that. And on the team side, just making sure everything we do is best in class. Nutrition and training and coaching, video, amenities, whatever is needed to help these guys optimize their performance, to make sure being on this team, being part of this brand, that they're proud of it and believe that they have an advantage. I don't think we can objectively say that that's the case right now. So he'll be making lots of improvements there. And there is a lot of rumors going around that they're going to build a practice rink for the team, which is something I've been saying for years since we moved down here that the Hurricanes need. Right now, their practice facility is just a small rinky-dink rink. I mean, you can literally almost jump up and touch, if you have a long enough stick, maybe a Chara length stick, you can touch the ceiling. That's how small this rink is. On trying to create an advantage, he said, I noticed the New England Patriots won again on Sunday, and they were losing the whole time, and no one is surprised. You expected it. That didn't come quick. We've got to start that process, and there's a lot of pieces in that. Most teams in sports have that same goal, and they're probably not that far away from it. They do a lot of the same things. They're playing the same sport. They've all got coaches, scouts, nutrition, video. They've got strength coaches. They've got game plans. There's a lot of similarities, yet there's something different. And that's what we've got to figure out. So he's basically using the Patriots as an example that they're doing the same things as all the other teams, except New England seems to come out on top year after year after year. And that's what he's striving to do with the Canes. Increasing the season ticket base. According to the Hurricanes, they have roughly 7,200 season ticket holders. I wouldn't put a number on it. The goal is to do all the things we're supposed to do. I think the goal depends on how much winning we do. The more we win, the more people are going to come. We're hopefully going to set something up where, because we're a young team and people believe we're going to do the right thing, we're going to give them value, they're going to be entertained. We want people not to miss out on that process. If we can help these fans build a relationship with the players and invest in the players, then I think it's more likely that they'll come. On how qualifying for the playoffs for the first time since 2009 would help that process, he said it's the most important factor and the hardest to control. I think it's clear we've got a foundation that our probabilities are strong. You wouldn't have to convince yourself like you would on some other things. You can get objective and know that if you make good decisions in the foreseeable future, you're going to be sustainable as a competitive team. Whether or not we can be one of the top couple of teams, I don't have a strong opinion on that. But I have a very strong opinion that we're super competitive right now. So he made comments about the fan potential based on the previous performance. You know, the 2002 Stanley Cup Final, the 2006 Stanley Cup season, the 2009 Eastern Conference Final, the way that the Hurricanes had a packed house. He believes they can get back to that. On the fans' in-game experience, he said it's entertainment. It's most like a TV show, and it's not up to the standard that I want it to be. It's the music and the timing and the video. There's 100 little things you've got to do to change that. We've got to look at what everybody does, and there's some equipment that we need that we're going to buy. There's a bunch of ways to do it. So what I read into that is a lot of fans have been looking for Carolina to do something similar to what teams like Montreal and Toronto, and with the turning the ice into a giant video screen and doing these. Yeah. I think we're going to see that here soon.
Wow,
because
that'd be really neat.
Because Karmanos did not want to spend the money on that kind of stuff. So I think Dundon will, because he wants to improve the whole overall entertainment experience for the fans. So it's not just about the game on the ice anyway. And then he's been bouncing around. He mentioned in the article that he's been bouncing around a bunch of teams, seeing what they're doing and what they're doing good, and he's taking ideas from that and get it better. Here's one question that that you'll be interested in. He was asked if he was a hockey fan when he was younger. He says, "I grew up watching hockey. I was born in New York and lived in South Jersey by Philadelphia. When I was a little kid, my parents watched the New York Rangers. I was 9 years old when the U.S. Olympic team won at Lake Placid in 1980. That was my one of biggest memories as a kid. Then living in Dallas, they got a team, so I went to all the games. You follow that process, and they were pretty good. I was a season ticket holder for many years. When I was either right out of college or a student and didn't have excess capital, I don't remember how I went, but you find a way to pay $5 or sneak in or whatever it was. So I've been watching hockey my whole life. When I watch sports, I watch it probably different than a casual fan because I'm interested in the process." So, yeah. So he's saying all the right things right now.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, and with that, I mean, the fact that he's mingling amongst the fans, I'm totally impressed by that. Where he's walking the concourse with all the fans, and he was dressed like one. He was dressed in a baseball cap, a zip up kind of warm up jacket, like a thin jacket with the Hurricanes logo on it, of course, and then just a pair of jeans or slacks or whatever. They didn't show exactly what he was wearing, but I didn't see him. But apparently he was walking amongst the crowd before the game.
That is really neat.
On Sunday.
You'd never see Peter Karmanos do that.
No.
Never.
He would take his, whatever valet ride in, come in the back door, and take the elevator straight up to the owner's suite. He would never mingle among the fans. So it's nice to see the new owner is into it. And he's becoming a fan just like everybody else. So that's always a good thing. And I guess he's good friends with Mark Cuban, who's the owner of the NBA's Dallas Stars. So Mark Cuban is and him are buddies. So they're probably bouncing ideas off each other on what to do with their respective teams. So very interesting article.
Yes, it is.
And
it's got to be exciting for people in this area.
Yep. I think it is. They're very excited about it. So, all right. Well, that's it for this week.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground, Wayne.
We did.
So, I'm excited about things, even though my team's losing right now.
That's not good. Yeah, my team's losing too. I just checked the score. It's 1-0 after one. So, yeah, let's go ahead and wrap things up for this week then so we can go watch our games. We got a lot to watch tonight. And,
there is a lot of hockey on TV.
We'll go ahead and wrap it up. And next one is tentative to be Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday next week. We'll record again.
Yes.
We'll decide on a date at a future time. We both have to take a look at our personal schedules, see where they're at, and then we will decide what day is best for the two of us. And we'll go from there.
That's correct. Very good. Wayne, it was good to work with you this week.
Yep.
And I look forward to working with you again next week before you head up north.
That's right. I've got my big tournament. So, yeah, next week will be our last show. And then we'll be off for a week's hiatus because I'll be up north playing in the Maine Pond Hockey Classic up on Lake Messalonsky, which is just north of Augusta, Maine. So looking forward to that trip very much. I'll be gone for 6 days, and that's basically made it so I won't have time to do a podcast that week. So we're going to skip a week, and then we'll be back after that with 2 weeks' worth of coverage. So, well, good.
Quick question. What's the name of your team? Did you get a
I don't think we've officially named the team yet. I think I just put something in. I think I called us ourselves the Caniac Maniacs, I think is what I put in there.
Oh, okay. That's a good one.
Yep. So we'll figure it out when we get there. Once we fill out the proper forms when we go register our team, we'll decide on a name finally. It may stay that, it may not, but we'll go from there and the reason we went Caniac Maniacs, of course, we've got a couple guys on the team from down here in North Carolina, and then there's a few guys we're meeting up there that are Maine residents that are going to be playing on our team. A couple of members of my family, and then a couple other guys that they know are going to be playing for our team. So you're blending the Carolina and the Maine together on one team, so it should be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So we're the Caniac Maniacs. Yeah. So it should be fun. Should be a lot of fun. All right, well, let's go ahead and end things for the week, and then until next week, we'll go from there. We'll talk to you later, Steve.
Have a good night, Wayne.
You too. All right.
That was good, man. That was a good one. That's going to be a good show.
Find the Rangers score.
Oh, they don't play till 10:30.
Oh, I was going to say.
Yeah, they're playing in San Jose, and it doesn't start till 10:30. So
I was looking at all the scores. I'm seeing 0-0 Toronto and Dallas. That game's just starting. Blues are up 1-0 over the Avs. Panthers Capitals tied at 1. Blackhawks are up 3-0 on the Red Wings.
Speaking of the on ice show that they may start putting on in Carolina, boy, San Jose's got a good one with those Sharks. It looks like the ice is water, and those sharks go swimming through. I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah.
When you watch a home game in what is it, SAP Center?
Yeah, a lot of teams are doing that, basically turning the ice into a giant video screen and doing some fancy graphics. Montreal does a real good job with theirs.
Yeah, they do.
Where they incorporate the little kid that comes out with a torch, and then he puts the torch down on to center ice. And then the whole ice explodes in flame. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is.
It's pretty cool. And I've been wanting Carolina to kind of go into the future, but fans asked the Canes, a couple seasons ago, hey, are we going to be seeing any of this coming our way? No, Hurricanes aren't going to be doing anything like that. Karmanos doesn't want to spend the money. So looks like this new owner is going to do a lot more for the fans. He's going to do a lot more for the experience of going to a game, make it more entertaining for everybody, even if the game on the ice isn't going their way. So it should be fun. But it is going their way tonight. They're up 2-0 on Montreal right now in Montreal.
Wow. Oh, that's good.
And the Bruins are down 1-0 against the Senators. But the Bruins outshot them 20-9 in the first period. So,
good luck with that. Ottawa with that frickin' trap.
Yeah, I know. Well, Bruins have had pretty good luck with them so far this year. So, we'll see. We'll see if they can come back. It's early. There's a lot of hockey. 40 minutes. Second period just started, so there's a lot of hockey left.
Oh yeah.
So, all right. Well, I'm going to go watch some games.
I'll let you go.
All right.
A good week.
Sounds good.
I'll be in touch.
Yep.
Sometime this week or whatever.